I'm Esther Bowmont, and I just made the most terrifying decision of my life. A billionaire's private jet is waiting for me in 3 hours. In my trembling hands, a ticket to Paris and a future I can't even imagine. Yesterday, I was nobody. Today, I'm about to discover what happens when impossible opportunities demand impossible courage. The black envelope sits on my kitchen counter like a loaded gun. Inside, a private jet reservation, a handwritten note, and the kind of opportunity that doesn't knock twice. In 3 hours, a Mercedes will arrive. In 5 hours, I'll either be airborne toward my dreams, or I'll have made the biggest mistake of my 26 years. This morning explodes with pure terror and wild hope. I call the diner at 6 a.m., quitting over the phone with a stumbling message about a family emergency. I can imagine Mr. Davies's annoyance, his dismissal of me as another flaky waitress. The thought feels strangely liberating, like shedding a skin that never fit. Packing becomes surreal. What does one pack for a clandestine Paris trip from a reclusive billionaire? My entire wardrobe, worn jeans, faded t-shirts, one 5-year-old black dress. I stuff everything into my old suitcase, feeling foolish and out of my depth. Maya watches from the doorway, worry and disbelief warring across her face. I ran a background check, she says, arms crossed. Alexander Sterling is basically a ghost. No scandals, no tabloid fodder, just business articles and philanthropy. Either he's a saint or very good at hiding his dark side. Maybe he's just private, I offer weakly, though even to my own ears it sounds naive. Private people don't summon random waitresses to Paris with anonymous notes and private jets, Maya snaps back without hesitation. This is beyond private, this is secretive. I've put a tracking app on your phone and I'm serious, Esther. Don't you dare turn it off. Check in with me every 3 hours, no exceptions. If I don't hear from you for more than 6 hours, I'm calling the American Embassy, the French police, the CIA, and anyone else who will listen. I hug her tightly, overwhelmed by gratitude for her fierce, protective loyalty. Maya has been my anchor through the worst years of my life, the steady voice of reason when everything else felt like it was falling apart around me. I'll be careful, I promise. This might be crazy, but it feels like the only chance I'm going to get to reclaim some piece of my old life. Or it might be the last mistake you ever make, she mutters darkly, but she hugs me back just as fiercely. At exactly 10 o'clock, as promised in the note, a black Mercedes-Benz S-Class materializes outside our building like something from a movie. Not the flashy, attention-grabbing kind of luxury car that screams wealth, but the understated, sophisticated kind that whispers power to those who know how to listen. A chauffeur in a perfectly pressed black suit emerges and opens the rear door without checking a list or asking my name. He simply nods respectfully and says, "Miss Beaumont, we are ready to depart when you are." The ride to Teterboro Airport is conducted in complete silence, smooth as silk, the city rushing past through tinted windows that make everything look like a film noir movie. I stare at familiar neighborhoods and landmarks, feeling a profound sense of detachment as if I'm watching someone else's life unfold rather than living my own. This morning, I was Esther the waitress. In a few hours, I'll be Esther the… what? I don't even know what I'm walking into. We don't go to the chaotic main terminal with its crowds and security lines and crying babies. Instead, we drive directly to a private executive hangar where everything is hushed efficiency and expensive discretion. There, gleaming on the tarmac like a silver bullet, sits the Gulfstream G650. It's more massive and imposing than I could have imagined, a technological marvel that represents more money than most people see in a lifetime. A flight attendant with a warm, genuine smile greets me at the aircraft steps. She's impeccably dressed, professional, but not cold, and she treats me like I belong here, rather than like an imposter who stumbled into the wrong life. "Welcome aboard, Miss Beaumont. Mr. Sterling has personally arranged every detail for your comfort during the flight. Please make yourself at home." The interior is a study in understated luxury that takes my breath away. Cream leather seats that feel like butter, polished mahogany surfaces that gleam like mirrors, subtle silver accents that echo the falcon crest from the business card. It's more like a flying apartment than an airplane, designed for people who view comfort not as luxury, but as a basic expectation. I'm the only passenger in a space designed for 12, which makes the experience feel even more surreal and intimidating. As we taxi down the runway, my heart pounds against my ribs so hard I can hear it over the whisper-quiet engines. This is it, the absolute point of no return. The moment when I either step into a new life or make the stupidest decision in 26 years of generally sensible choices. The engines roar with incredible power, pressing me deep into the plush seats as we surge forward and lift off into the morning sky. Within moments, we're climbing steeply through wispy clouds, and below us, New York City shrinks into a miniature version of itself, the diner where I served coffee just yesterday, the tiny queen's apartment where I've been slowly dying of unfulfilled potential, my entire constrained life vanishing into haze and distance. I'm untethered now, suspended between the world I knew and a terrifying, exhilarating unknown future that could be anything at all. The flight attendant serves a lunch that puts every meal I've ever served to shame: delicate poached salmon with dill cream sauce, asparagus so perfectly prepared it still has a gentle snap, champagne that fizzes on my tongue like liquid stars and costs more per bottle than I made in a week. It feels like inhabiting someone else's dream, luxurious and unreal, and slightly overwhelming. I keep expecting to wake up in my narrow bed in Queens, reaching for my alarm clock and my grease-stained uniform. 7 hours later, the dream continues and deepens. As we descend through European darkness, Paris emerges from the night like a constellation that fell to earth, a glittering carpet of gold and silver lights stretching to every horizon. The Eiffel Tower rises from the center of it all, lit in its nightly spectacle, piercing the sky like a diamond needle threading through black velvet. A lump forms in my throat that I can't swallow away. I'm back. After 4 years of homesickness so acute it sometimes felt like physical pain. After 4 years of speaking English when my dreams were still in French, I'm finally back in the city that shaped me into who I really am. We land at Le Bourget, the private airport north of Paris where the wealthy and powerful arrive and depart without the inconvenience of customs lines or paparazzi. No chaos, no baggage claim, no standing in queues with crying children and impatient business travelers. I'm escorted directly from the plane to another waiting car, another silent chauffeur, another smooth ride through streets that smell like rain and history and possibility. We drive through Paris in the late evening, past landmarks that make my heart ache with bittersweet nostalgia. The Arc de Triomphe stands illuminated against the night sky, the Champs, Élysée stretches ahead like a river of light, and everywhere I look there are memories of the person I used to be. The cafe where I spent entire afternoons reading Proust, the bookstore where I discovered my favorite poets, the bridge where I used to stand and watch the Seine flow past while I planned a future that seemed limitless and bright. But we don't stop at a hotel as I expected. Instead, we pull up to imposing wrought iron gates that open silently onto a private, tree-lined cobblestone drive. At its end stands a magnificent Hotel Particulier, a grand Parisian mansion in the prestigious 16th arrondissement. It's a limestone and slate palace, 4 stories tall with perfectly proportioned windows glowing warmly in the night, surrounded by manicured gardens that probably require a full-time staff to maintain. This isn't just wealth, this is generational, institutional power made manifest in stone and iron. Welcome to Mr. Sterling's Parisian residence, Miss Bowmont, the chauffeur says as he opens my door with practiced deference. My legs feel unsteady as I walk up the wide stone steps, my scuffed suitcase looking pathetically out of place in these surroundings. The massive oak front door, probably older than my entire country, swings open before I can even raise my hand to knock. Standing in the grand, marble-floored foyer that could easily house my entire queen's apartment is Alexander Sterling himself. He's dressed simply in the same kind of dark sweater and well-tailored trousers he wore at the diner, but here in his own domain, the understated elegance feels different, more natural, more commanding. Up close, away from the fluorescent lights and chaos of the restaurant, I can see details I missed before. The faint lines of fatigue around his sharp, intelligent eyes suggest someone who carries enormous responsibility. His dark hair has touches of premature silver at the temples. He's younger than I initially thought, perhaps late 30s, but there's something in his bearing that speaks of burdens and decisions that age a person beyond their years. Miss Beaumont, he says, and his voice is exactly as I remember, a calm, low baritone that seems to resonate from somewhere deep in his chest. Welcome to Paris. I trust your flight was comfortable and met your expectations. It was, yes, thank you. I managed to stammer, feeling impossibly small in this cavernous entrance hall with its soaring ceilings painted with cherubs and clouds, its priceless-looking artwork, its general atmosphere of casual, enormous wealth. Mr. Sterling, I have to say, I still don't understand any of this. Why I'm here, what you want from me, what any of this means. I know, he says, and a faint smile touches the corners of his mouth. The first truly human expression I've seen from him. Complete clarity about the situation is exactly why you're here, Miss Bowmont. But first, you must be exhausted from the travel and the stress of making such a significant decision on very short notice. My housekeeper, Madame Rousseau, will show you to your room. We can discuss everything properly in the morning when you've had time to rest and adjust. As if summoned by his words, a woman in a crisp gray uniform appears from somewhere in the depths of the mansion. She's middle-aged, efficient-looking, with kind eyes and the bearing of someone who has spent decades managing the complicated lives of very wealthy people. Bonsoir, Mademoiselle Beaumont, she says warmly, her accent purely Parisian. Please, if you will follow me. As I follow Madame Rousseau up a sweeping marble staircase that belongs in a museum, I glance back over my shoulder. Alexander Sterling remains in the foyer, watching me ascend with that same unreadable, analytical expression he wore in the diner. His hands are clasped behind his back, his posture relaxed but alert, like a chess master contemplating his next several moves simultaneously. He still hasn't explained anything about why I'm here or what he wants from me. If anything, the mystery has only deepened with each passing hour. This isn't a gift or a romantic gesture or a simple act of generosity. This is a prelude to something much more complex, and I'm beginning to understand that I'm not a guest here, I'm an investment. I wake the next morning in a bed so comfortable it feels like sleeping on a cloud made of the finest Egyptian cotton. Sunlight streams through tall French windows that reach nearly to the ceiling, illuminating a bedroom that's larger than our entire queen's apartment. The decor is exquisitely tasteful cream and soft gray with touches of silver, a small marble fireplace that probably dates to the 18th century, and a private balcony overlooking manicured gardens where a gardener is already at work among the roses. On a small table beside the window, breakfast waits. Fresh croissants that smell like they were made minutes ago. Coffee so perfect it makes the diner's brew taste like dishwater, and jam that probably comes from fruit grown on some countryside estate. It's a beautiful cage, luxurious beyond anything I've ever experienced, and I'm still a prisoner of confusion and uncertainty. After dressing in my one good black dress, which now feels woefully inadequate for these surroundings, I make my way downstairs through corridors lined with what appear to be original Renaissance paintings. I find Alexander Sterling in a vast, book-lined study that looks like it belongs to a Renaissance scholar rather than a modern tech billionaire. Floor-to-ceiling shelves hold thousands of leather-bound volumes in multiple languages, and he sits behind a desk that could easily seat 8 people for dinner, reviewing documents on a sleek, nearly transparent tablet that represents the kind of technology most people won't see for another decade. He looks up as I enter, gestures to a pair of leather armchairs positioned across from his desk. The morning light streaming through tall windows catches the silver threads in his dark hair, and I notice his eyes are a deep gray-green, the color of the ocean during a storm. Good morning, Miss Beaumont. Please have a seat. I imagine you slept well after such an eventful day. Mr. Sterling. I begin, my voice firmer and more determined than I expected. I appreciate the flight and the accommodations, and the breakfast was extraordinary, but I need to know why I'm here. This entire situation is far beyond unusual, it's bizarre. I'm grateful, but I'm also confused and more than a little frightened. Direct and honest. I appreciate that quality, he says, setting his tablet aside and giving me his complete attention. You are here, Miss Beaumont, because I need someone with a very specific and rare combination of skills and qualities. Someone I believe you possess despite your current employment circumstances. Before he can elaborate further, the study doors open with the kind of dramatic timing that suggests the interruption was carefully planned. A woman enters, her heels clicking decisively across the polished parquet floor, radiating the kind of intimidating authority that makes boardrooms go silent and subordinates scramble to attention. She's tall, impossibly chic in that particular French way that makes other women feel underdressed, and every detail of her appearance speaks of money, power, and the confidence that comes from never having to doubt either. Her dark hair is pulled back in a severe chignon that probably required a professional stylist, and her tailored Christian Dior suit fits her like it was sewn directly onto her body by master craftsmen. But it's her eyes that stop me cold, the same piercing gray-green as Alexander's, but harder somehow, more calculating and dismissive. "Alexander, you're already 20 minutes late for the Lefebvre preliminary discussion," she says without preamble, her voice crisp and carrying the particular accent that results from expensive British boarding schools followed by equally expensive American business schools. She stops mid-stride when she notices me, her gaze sweeping over me with the kind of cool, professional dismissal that makes me feel like furniture that's been placed in the wrong room. Is this her? The waitress? Alexander's expression remains carefully impassive, but I sense tension between them that runs deeper than professional disagreement. "Esther Bowmont. Please meet my sister, Isabelle Sterling. She serves as our chief operating officer and handles most of our European acquisitions. Isabelle, this is Miss Beaumont, whom we discussed." Isabelle offers me a smile that's as sharp and cold as winter sunlight on ice. It's technically polite, but it doesn't reach her eyes, and there's something predatory about it that makes my skin crawl with instinctive wariness. "A pleasure to meet you, Miss Beaumont, though I must confess I don't entirely understand the purpose of this particular experiment. My brother has a regrettable tendency to see potential in the most unlikely places and people. He seems to believe that because you speak French and can handle difficult customers, you can somehow solve a multi-billion-dollar problem that has stymied our best negotiators for months." My head spins as the implications hit me like cold water. A multi-billion-dollar problem? Alexander finally begins to explain, leaning forward slightly in his chair. "Sterling Innovations is in the process of acquiring a French luxury company, Maison Lefebvre. Perhaps you're familiar with the name?" I know it instantly. Everyone with any interest in fashion or luxury goods knows Maison Lefebvre. It's a legendary Parisian house founded in the 18th century, famous for creating bespoke leather goods, exquisite perfumes, and accessories for royalty, celebrities, and the ultra-wealthy. They represent everything that's most sophisticated and exclusive about French craftsmanship and heritage, the kind of brand that other luxury companies aspire to emulate but never quite achieve. Lefebvre has been family, owned for 8 generations. Alexander continues, his voice taking on the tone of someone delivering a complex briefing. The current matriarch, Genevieve Lefebvre, has been running the company with an iron fist for the past 40 years. She's a traditionalist who believes that an American technology company, even one with our resources and reputation, will inevitably destroy everything her family has built over nearly 3 centuries. We've sent some of the world's most accomplished lawyers and negotiators to meet with her. They've all failed spectacularly. Isabelle interjects with barely concealed frustration, pacing toward the window with the restless energy of someone accustomed to solving problems through force of will and superior firepower. They've failed because they don't understand the cultural nuances involved. They don't speak her language. And I don't just mean French. They don't understand the deep respect for tradition, the reverence for heritage, the almost mystical connection between craftsmanship and identity that defines everything she does. Our last merger and acquisitions specialist, a Harvard MBA with 15 years of experience closing international deals, was essentially thrown out of her office because he wore white sneakers to what he thought was a casual preliminary end meeting. I'm beginning to understand the shape of what they're asking, and it's both more complex and more impossible than I could have imagined. You need a cultural translator. No, Alexander says, his gray-green eyes locking onto mine with laser intensity. We have dozens of translators. We have cultural consultants and protocol specialists, and experts in French business customs. What I need is something much rarer and more valuable, a bridge. Someone who can understand and navigate French cultural subtlety and show genuine respect for heritage and tradition, but who also understands American directness, ambition, and the realities of modern global business. Someone who can move seamlessly between both worlds and make each side understand the other's perspective. He pauses, and when he continues, There's something almost vulnerable in his voice. In that diner, Miss Beaumont, I didn't just observe a waitress speaking French to help a confused tourist. I watched a woman demonstrate intelligence, grace, and cultural sensitivity under pressure. I saw someone handle a difficult, arrogant man with perfect poise while simultaneously showing genuine empathy and compassion to a frightened, lost woman. You used flawless, colloquial French not to show off or gain advantage, but to create a genuine human connection and solve a real problem. That combination of qualities, grace under pressure, authentic cultural fluency, emotional intelligence, and genuine empathy is exponentially rarer than you might imagine. It cannot be taught in business schools or acquired through experience. It's either part of who you are, or it isn't. Isabelle sighs audibly, her impatience radiating across the room like heat from a furnace. It's a romantic notion, Alexander, and I'm sure it makes for a compelling story. But this is a $2.7 billion acquisition, not a social experiment or a feel-good movie about discovering hidden potential. Miss Beaumont has no corporate experience whatsoever, no background in finance or international law, no understanding of the complexities involved in major mergers and acquisitions. Yesterday she was serving pie and coffee. Today you want her to negotiate with one of the most influential and stubborn women in the French luxury goods industry. The insult lands like a physical slap, but I force myself to hold my ground and maintain eye contact. I won't let this woman, no matter how sophisticated and powerful, diminish me or reduce my worth to a simple job description. And what exactly is it that you do when you're not serving food to ungrateful customers? Isabelle presses, her voice taking on the tone of a prosecutor cross-examining a hostile witness. What hidden talents and qualifications did my brother's private investigation uncover? The question confirms what I suspected he had me thoroughly investigated, which is both flattering and deeply unsettling. How much does he know about my life, my family, my struggles? I was a student, I reply steadily, meeting her challenging stare without flinching. At the Sorbonne. I was studying art history and French cultural studies, focusing on the intersection of tradition and modernization in post-war European society. I was 3/4 of the way through my degree when I had to leave due to a family emergency. Alexander nods slowly, as if confirming information he already possessed in great detail. Isabelle, however, looks entirely unimpressed and slightly disdainful. So you're a college dropout, she states flatly, as if that single label defines everything important about my intelligence, capabilities, or potential value. My sister occasionally lacks subtlety in her communication style, Alexander says, shooting Isabelle a warning look that she ignores completely. Here's the current situation, Miss Beaumont, presented without diplomatic softening. This isn't a vacation or a charitable gesture. It's the most unconventional job interview of your life. I want you to join our team for the crucial meeting with Genevieve Lefebvre and her family. You won't be expected to negotiate financial terms or navigate legal complexities. We have specialists for that. Your role will be to listen, observe, and build bridges where our previous attempts have encountered only walls. And if I somehow succeed in this impossible task, I ask, though part of me already knows the answer will be life-changing. If you help us secure this acquisition, Alexander says, his voice taking on the tone of someone making a formal offer, I will create a position for you, Director of Cultural Integration for our European acquisitions. It would involve a substantial salary that would immediately solve any family debt issues, a comprehensive benefits package, housing allowances for both Paris and New York, and a career path that would utilize your actual talents and education rather than wasting them on menial service work. I will also personally fund the completion of your degree at the Sorbonne, should you choose to finish what you started. It's an offer so far beyond anything I could have imagined that it takes my breath away, not just a lifeline back to financial stability, but a chance to reclaim the intellectual life and career trajectory that were stolen from me by circumstances beyond my control. And if I fail? I ask, though I suspect I already know this answer too. Isabelle responds before Alexander can speak, her voice carrying the satisfied tone of someone who expects to be proven right. If you fail, Miss Beaumont, there will be a car waiting to take you directly back to Le Bourget, and you'll be on the next available flight to New York. You can have your old diner job back, assuming they haven't already replaced you. We'll compensate you generously for your time and inconvenience, of course, but your brief European adventure will be over. Her tone makes it abundantly clear that failure is not just possible, but probable, the only outcome she expects. The weight of their expectations, the sheer audacity of this entire impossible situation, presses down on my shoulders like a physical force. They're asking me to step into a corporate environment that operates at the highest levels of international business, armed with nothing but a half-finished arts degree, fluent French, and whatever intangible qualities Alexander thinks he observed during 5 minutes in a Manhattan diner. It's beyond ambitious, it's nearly insane. But then I force myself to think about the alternative. Failure means returning to the diner, to the daily grind of serving coffee to people who see me as invisible, to the slow suffocation of unfulfilled potential and abandoned dreams. Success means everything: a career, financial freedom, intellectual engagement, and the chance to finish what I started at the Sorbonne. I look from Isabelle's cold, challenging stare to Alexander's quietly expectant one. There's something in his eyes that suggests he genuinely believes I can do this, which is both terrifying and oddly comforting. The silence stretches between us like a taut wire. Isabelle's cold stare promises failure. Alexander's gray-green eyes hold something I can't quite read: faith, perhaps, or desperation. When is the meeting with Madame Lefebvre? I hear myself ask. Alexander's slight smile tells me he knows I've decided, but what none of us can predict is whether I'm about to save his company or destroy everything we're both gambling on.